No ID, no deposit, pure trust between two farmers. Most tech founders have never ever tried to use their own product. Ag technology has to be as rugged as the people that are going to use it.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicho. AgTech loves scale, but agriculture runs on small family farms. In this episode, I sit down with Jean Francois Cloutier to unpack the massive disconnect between cutting-edge technology and the reality on the ground. If nearly 90% of farms in North America are small or family run, why are they still overlooked and what's broken in the way we build for them? From the invisible frictions of daily ranch life to the real stakes for food security, we explore what happens if these operators remain under-digitized and where AI, robotics, and fintech can actually make a difference. Most importantly, we get into what good technology really looks like for small farmers and how JF is building them, not just for them, but also shaped by his own family's ranching story and a vision for the next generation. JF, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, nice to be here, Mateo.
JF, you've said 90% of farms in North America are small or family run, yet underserved by tech. What has AgTech largely ignored them and what needs to change?
Well, numbers are striking. In the US, according to the 2022 Census of Agriculture, over 90% of farms are small operations that are going to generate less than $2 million in annual revenues. That's roughly in the US only 1.7 million operations out of 1.9. In Canada, it's also the same story. In EU, same story, right? Most of the fabric of the food system is operated by small farms. They account for roughly half of the total farm operating revenues and food production. So they're not hobby farms. They're actually the backbone of our food system. Why did AgTech mostly ignore them? That's an interesting question. I don't believe that it's because farmers hate technology. Some people think that it's the case, but I believe it's a myth. Yes, um, half of the farmers are over 60 and nearing retirement, but the other half are younger people that grew up with smartphones, computers, social media, GPS, Counter-Strike. So they love tech. Um, One of the issues is that the technology built for them is rarely adapted to their reality. Small and mid-sized farms, they don't have a dedicated IT person or a full-time admin staff to handle the complex sales and implementation cycles, right? They see a tool and think, oh, looks complicated, so I'll deal with it later, right? Because they never have the time to actually implement it themselves. And they're right, you know. So when investors ask founders, "What's your plan to sell the mega farms?" It's because enterprise sales to them feel way safer. But selling to farmers isn't hard. I do it. I do it on a weekly basis. I buy and I sell to and from farmers every single week. It's hard when you use an enterprise sales approach. Farmers won't trust the slick salesman in the suit, but they're going to trust their local agronomist, their co-op rep, and other farmers. They are businesses that you should not try to approach with an enterprise sales tactic. They are businesses you should approach with just like you would do with consumer sales. And it's trust based quite a bit. Um, I realized that when buying fence lumber last summer, right? I had a trailer issue at the seller's farm, and the guy just pointed at his brand new heavy duty trailer a $50,000 thing, right? And you just said, "Oh, just bring it back when you're done." No ID, no deposit, pure trust between two farmers. That's a relationship you need to build to sell those smaller farms. Um, AgTech has to shift from enterprise sales to sales tactics that are farmer-centric, and that comes with trust, right? Um, Simple onboarding, word of mouth, proof, and technologies that work for them. If investors keep chasing only the big farms, we'll keep getting big ag tech that leaves the majority of operations behind. We need more capital and more innovation focused on the 90%, because that's where the real scale and resilience of our food system truly lives.
So, from your own experience as a rancher, what are the invisible frictions in daily farm life that most tech founders completely misunderstand?
Uh, that that's a good one, because most tech founders have never ever tried to use their own product while standing in a muddy corral with cows all around, right? Or when outside in freezing temperatures with gloves, when operating a cattle chute. They never tried it when in a bouncing tractor seeding a field, right? Um, so the lack of adapted UIs and interfaces is actually hurting adoption. There's always something more urgent, right? Machinery is going to break, cattle is going to escape, weather is going to turn on a dime, water is going to freeze or catch on fire. If your app isn't Facebook level easy to open and use under 10 seconds, it goes to the bottom of the list, right? Farmers spend most of their farm day in the field, not at a desk. So the software you build has to fit to deal with that reality, right? Um, Also, connectivity is spotty at best in some areas. Um, you need software that's going to work offline or with voice commands when your hands are full or frozen, right? A lot of small and mid-sized operators also have off-farm jobs, like 40% of them. So they work 200 days plus on the farms and off farm, and the number is even higher when you think about smaller operations. So some tools try to solve that by printing paper sheets that you bring with you in the field, and then when you come back inside the house, you have to do the data entry, sometimes in 2, 3 different systems, right? It's not even moving the friction. It's not removing the friction. You move it somewhere else, and you make it worse by trying to solve it in a way that's not adapted to farmers. Good ag tech has to disappear into the background lives of farmers, not add something else to the list, because they won't have time for that.
Crystal clear. How critical are small and medium-sized farms to food security in the US and Canada? And what risks do we face if they remain under-digitized?
Small and mid-sized farms, like I said previously, are the backbone of our food system. Uh, they're just not nice to have. They're a strategic vulnerability if we lose them. I see two main risks. First, we have a succession crisis. Uh, the median age is 58-year-old among farmers, and many are retiring without the next generation ready to take over. Um, Around half the farms are going to change hands in the next 10 years. It's a massive opportunity, but it's also a massive risk, right? Without simple, affordable tech that reduces the admin burden and makes the operation more profitable and less exhausting, a lot of these farms will simply shut down or get aggregated by mega farms. We're going to lose institutional knowledge. Land goes out of production, get bought, and the local food supply chains are going to be weakened, right? Second risk, rapid consolidation, fueled by the first issue. So the first issue makes the second issue worse because farmers are going to sell to larger farms. Their kids don't want to do it. And low margins, input costs are more and more. It's increasingly making it hard to turn a profit with smaller operations. But when small farms disappear, the remaining production is going to concentrate in fewer hands. It could be giant domestic operations or even foreign-owned entities that are going to be controlling large chunks of land and larger chunks of your food production. And when you have concentration or consolidation in the market and you have very few players controlling a system, I have never seen a case where it was good for the consumers. But in this case, it's not a new cell phone. It's not an internet connection. It's actually what you need to survive food, right? An example of that is the US packing industry. It's mostly dominated by only 4 players. In Canada, we see similar pressures in various parts of the food chains. It contributes to driving prices up for consumers. Just look at the beef price in Canada right now, or some other food production items, commodities. It's hard on consumer when it happens. It reduces resilience to shocks too, right? Mega farms are overly specialized. So if something happened in that specific production, be it I don't know, a trade war, a deal that you lose with India or China, or just even a bad year where you had floods, bad weather, or just an illness, you are going to create a lot of ripples for that specific commodity in your supply chain. And then it's going to make it harder for those mega farms to actually turn a profit the year after that because they lost a lot of their production, and insurance costs are going to go higher. And because of that, they're going to have to increase the prices the next year, right? I believe that technology can solve both risks, but it won't solve it alone. Digital tools that make succession easier, yes. Better records, automated compliance, more financial visibility are probably going to help keeping family farms viable and attractive to the next generation. Unified farm twins and low-cost sensors are going to give the smaller operations the same data advantage of the big guys have, right? And they will be able to compete on efficiency, stay independent, and facilitate farm transfers. Digitization is not replacing farmers. It's about making sure that the next generation actually wants to stay on the land and work in that industry. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have right now. The rest of the equation in that market, it's farming is a very capital intensive industry. You need money to buy land. You need money for the equipment. You need money to operate the equipment. You need inputs. Then you have insurance. You have compliance fees, and it never ends, right? So financial product innovations to support successions, transfers, younger farmers, and ongoing operations is also important to solve the other part of the equation.
Where do you see the biggest real impact of deep tech, AI, robotics, fintech in agriculture?
I see three areas where deep tech is already delivering outsized returns, especially when it's built for smaller operators. First, environmental solutions. Um, Laser de-weeders are a perfect example of that. Precision robotics that are going to zap weeds with lights or lasers instead of spraying chemicals that reduce yield and revenues or could even jeopardize a full crop cycle in some of your fields. It cuts herbicide use dramatically. It's lowering costs for farmers and meet consumer demand for cleaner food, right? That's huge for both the environment and the bottom line of farmers. The second thing is efficiency on the admin and operation side. An AI that handles compliance, payroll, grant applications, and basic bookkeeping automatically is huge for farmers that don't have the money to have a dedicated admin resource, right? A lot of small farms are going to spend way too many hours on paperwork that has nothing to do with growing or raising animals. Another reality is that farms are more and more operated by solo farmers. So autonomous systems or GPS-guided precision systems are increasingly important to maximize the yield and minimize the efforts. And in that context, they don't have time to spend on the admin side of things. If you go back 30, 40 years, family farms were ran by two people and more, like the children too, but mostly two people. You had the farmer, and the farmer had a partner that was mostly stay at home, who would do all the paperwork. So sometimes I'm discussing with financial partners in the ag fintech industry, and they're like, oh no, they love the human contact, right? And they don't mind if we close branches and they have to drive an hour. But things are changing. When you're a stay-at-home partner doing all the admin for your farming partner, and you seldom leave the farm, when you have the opportunity to drive an hour, go to town, and meet with someone for your financial needs, you love it, right? When you're a sole farmer that have an off-farm job, maybe your reality is different, right? And the third place I see where tech could help, and especially deep tech, is the observability and decision support, creating a true farm twin. There are sensors and data providers everywhere now, but smaller farms can't afford a full-time dev to stitch it all together, right? One of the biggest opportunities is a unified, easy-to-use dashboard that pulls weather, soil equipment, livestock, market data into one simple decision view, as well as more affordable sensors. And those sensors are rarely compatible together, right? So larger farms are going to select a sensor partner, and they're going to work with them, and they can even afford to have some integrations done with their other systems, but smaller farms can do that. But I believe that's where AI and robotics and fintech can actually shine, right? Turning raw data into actionable insights without requiring a PhD to operate it. If with the proper data and the proper tools, we can lower the field and harvest losses, for example, just by a couple percentage points, or provide better irrigation that maximize the yield, it would be good for everyone. Good for the farmer that's gonna have more revenues, which is gonna lower the food prices, and most importantly, reduce the stress on the farmer.
Now, you are building tools specifically for smaller operators. What does good technology look like for them versus enterprise scale farms?
Yeah. Um, Good technology for small operators is the absolute opposite of enterprise scale tools in almost every single way, right? It has to be freemium or give value instantly. You can't spend 4 months deploying something like a technology. You can't do that. They don't have time. They don't have the money to do that. Um, I personally like freemium models with core functionality. Uh, that's always going to be free, so they can try it with no risk. Um, then pay only for the value added services or premium features that actually move the needle for them and their specific type of operations. Um, it has to work in the field, or it's not going to work for those farmers. Um, Voice first, designed for bouncing tractors, muddy gloves, bad cell service. That means going against a lot of the traditional UI and UX rules that you see everywhere else, right? Um, in one of my projects, we actually inspired ourselves with aviation technology. Um, Garmin, ForeFlight, they have they solved it, right? You can be in a small plane bouncing around in turbulences and still be able to operate your flight computer. Um, so we have to come up with maybe a different standard for UI and UX than what you're used to with enterprise software. Um, and it has to be insanely easy to connect. Um, Adding a new sensor should be as simple as pairing your Bluetooth phone with your car, right? Um, no IT setups, no manuals, no consultants. If it takes more than 5 minutes to get value, it's probably not built for the 90% farms that actually need it the most, right?
On a personal level now, and that you have an amazing story. How did your family's ranching story shape your motivation to build in AgTech? And what future are you trying to create for the next generation of farmers?
It it all started when I was a kid. Um, I was living in Eastern Canada, and the government expropriated our family land to build a road. Um, then I lost my dad. My mom got sick. Um, we ended up, my brothers and I, bouncing between foster homes and foster families, and that instability uh, left a deep void. Um, Owning land and farming became more than a dream of getting back to what we've lost. It became a literal obsession. So the moment I made some money in tech, I bought my first piece of land, built a log cabin on it by hand, and started exploring different kind of farming and ag. Um, in 2016, I met my wife, and she comes from a farming family in Quebec. She has family doing potatoes, beans, fruits, a lot of maple, silviculture, which is the tree farming kind of thing. Um, on our third date, we were already talking about how we were both going to farm and ranch more and more as an ultimate life goal. Um, that was how important it was to both of us, right? Um, was discussed right when we started dating. Fast forward to 2022, I bought a new plane in Phoenix, Arizona. Then I flew it to Calgary, Springbanks, um, at Innovative Wings because they specialize in racing aircrafts. And when I picked it up there with my father-in-law, we saw the West, and something clicked. I felt like I'd finally come home. The ranches, the mountains, the people, the sun. It's always sunny here. I fell in love with the West. Um, just before we flew back, um, we called our wives. My yeah, and we joked about the West, and we told him, just so you know, it's awesome here. We're never coming back. I hope you have a great life. He was joking. I was serious. So the same year, we leased out most of our Quebec properties, packed up, and moved to Alberta with the intent to start a beef operation. Um, and AgTech uh, is not a recent thing. Some of the very first systems I ever worked on were the original Sage pesticide database. I worked on livestock genetics projects too, early career, and environmental management tools for farms, in collaboration sometimes with the government. And after spending a little bit more than a decade in AI, after we moved out west, I realized that AgTech um, had been left behind. Nothing has evolved in the last like 20 years or so. You see some innovations here and there, but it's still in its infancy, right? It's starting, and that's super exciting. Um, and especially for ranchers, the problems that I saw at our own place and my wife's family were exactly the kind of hard, real world problems that AI and modern software should be solving, given the importance of the food chain, but weren't solving yet. But that's exciting because um, we're seeing more and more investment um, in the industry, and a lot more innovations that 5-10 years ago. Um, so I ended up going back to AgTech and ultimately work remotely from the ranch. Um, I can't think of a better life than having enough farm job from your farm. It makes everything easier, right? It's honest, it's physical. You live in connection with your land, your animals, and you're always surrounded by that. You have to show up every single day, no matter what, and that's great because cattle doesn't care about the weather. They don't care about your mood. You have to be there, um, even when things get hard. Um, Last year we had a structural roof failure on our home that forced us out of the house from mid September to mid November. We didn't even know at first if we'd have a roof uh, come winter, right? We couldn't find a contractor. Contractors were coming here, and they would be like, "Oh wow, I'm not touching that project; too risky." So we had a hard time finding a contractor, and we ultimately found found one, um, and he started in September, and we were back in the house just in time for Christmas. Um, but we didn't know if we'd have a house at minus 50, you know. Um, but still, we were sleeping outside, and we still had to feed the cattle, check on them, um, and make sure that we're all right. Um, but we did something very in line with the Western culture. So my sons and I, when we weren't sure if we'd have a roof for winter, we decided to use wood that we had and build two rustic cabins that we could heat with stoves. Um, so we would have a warm place to stay, right? And we actually slept in those cabins for a while. And I was still shipping code, managing the team, chasing new clients, and feeding the cattle. And right around the same time, my wife had a serious accident on the ranch, and I had to actually start handling the paperwork and the admin side of the ranch too. Uh, she was usually doing it, and seriously, I hated the tools that she was using. She was doing everything in Excel, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna build something. I'm gonna build something that's adapted to our reality with modern technologies. So I teamed up with a couple friends, and we decided to do just that. And now my the admin side of the farm is actually way easier than what it was before. Yeah, and that's why I keep saying that ag technology has to be as rugged as the people that are going to use it. Ranchers and farmers, um, they are rugged, right? And they don't have a choice. They're going to show up no matter what. They need to have technology that's going to show up for them, no matter what, when they need it, and do the right thing. I think that those experiences crystallized everything, right? Small operators have a lot of potential if they just had the right tools. Yeah.
Yeah. JF, that is an amazing story. I love how you walk the talk, right? You not only you are living through many of the problems that you're trying to solve, and you understand small farmers in a way that really no one else does. So, JF, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for sharing your story. This was an amazing episode, and I hope that we can stay in touch and maybe do this again in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime.